Frank Giuseppe. I'm the Academic Dean at Missouri Military Academy. I'm delighted to welcome all of you to the finals of the 81st Annual W. Wallace Fry Public Speaking Contest, which marks the official beginning of the 124th commencement exercises of Missouri Military Academy. This evening, 6 cadets will vie for the Wallace Fry Public Speaking Award and the Churchill Memorial Plaque. In 1932, the late Judge Fry of the MMA class of 1903 inaugurated his award to be presented each year to that cadet at Missouri Military Academy whose speech is judged to be the best on the basis of delivery, content, and rhetorical skill. An additional incentive was added to the contest in 1970 when Westminster College, located in Fulton, Missouri, provided the Sir Winston Churchill Memorial Award. The Churchill Award goes to the cadet whose well-delivered message espouses a just cause. The speeches tonight represent the work of the entire MMA Cadet Corps. Competition began months ago as each cadet researched and wrote a paper on a vital issue of today for their English class. Each student then presented his speech in preliminary competition. Teachers selected semifinalists from each class who were then judged by an MMA panel in April. That competition resulted in the selection of the 6 finalists that you see here before you this evening. The cadets will speak in the order shown on your program without introduction. The judges who will determine the winner of both the Fry Cup and the Churchill Plaque are as follows. Mr. Louis Leonati, attorney from Leonati and Baker, Mexico, Missouri. Lou, will you stand and bow, please? Dr. Caroline Perry, Senior Vice President and Dean of Faculty, Westminster College, Fulton, Missouri. And Dr. Terry Robinson, High School Principal, Mexico High School, Mexico, Missouri. I'd be remiss if I did not mention the great music before this contest has begun by the Missouri MMA Colonels Jazz Band. So let's hear it for them, please. We will enjoy, when the judges are deliberating after the speeches are over, we will enjoy more of that jazz band. It's extremely important to understand also, as an educational institution like this, that the 21st century is calling for skills that include, interestingly enough, something that we've always felt as educators was important, and that is public speaking. So it's important to understand that these 6 finalists, whether they win or not tonight, they should be commended for reaching this level to show their rhetorical skills. So let's give a hand for them too.
On childhelp.org, one can find the story of an adult named Cheryl who still struggles from when she was abused as a child. She says her first real memory was at age 4 when she was beaten because of a scratch on her mother's new table. However, the cigarette burns and hot coffee scars tell of earlier and continued abuse at the hands of her own mother. Cheryl says she left home at age 16 and still has nightmares about the abuse she endured during her childhood. Unfortunately, Cheryl is not alone. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services estimates that 905,000 children were victims of child abuse or neglect in 2008. Abuse has lasting effects on a child. One study shows that 31% of adolescents who were physically or mentally abused had suicidal thoughts, compared to only 10% of adolescents who were not abused. With the effects lasting even into adulthood, it is time that the United States works to put a stop to child abuse. 905,000 children is 905,000 children too many. And currently, the United States has many plans in place to help prevent child abuse and punish those who commit this crime. But it isn't enough. Children are still being abused. The United States needs to stand up for the future and reduce the number of abused children by taking the 3 following steps. 1, forcing harsher penalties on mandated reporters who do not report. 2, strengthening the punishment of those people convicted of abuse. And 3, starting peer education programs. Federal law defines abuse as, open quote, an act or failure to act that results in death or imminent risk or serious harm to a child, end quote. According to a 2011 article in USA Today, open quotes, laws that could punish doctors, teachers, and other adults for keeping silent when they suspect a child has been abused have gone largely unenforced in the last decade, end quote. Currently, the United States has laws in place that require many adults in caretaking positions to file a report or call a hotline if they suspect that a child is or has been abused. These adults are called mandated reporters, and they can be held legally responsible if they have not reported suspected or known abuse. However, only 18 states, less than 1/3 of the nation, name all adults as mandated reporters. In many states, such as Michigan, only 5 people in the last decade were brought to trial and convicted for failing to report. In Hawaii and New Mexico, no adults in the last 10 years were charged for not reporting. Since the federal law clearly states that a, open quote, failure to act, end quote, is considered abuse, mandated reporters who do not report, by definition, are abusing the child, and they should go to jail, not just receive a fine. We need to be sure that those who do offend are punished accordingly. Under Missouri law, child abuse is currently labeled as a Class C felony. A person convicted of this crime is not eligible for probation before 1 year of imprisonment. It is possible that a person who abuses or abused a child could serve only 1 year in prison and be right back out doing the same thing again. If the person is convicted a second time, the crime becomes a Class B felony, and they are not eligible for probation for 5 years. Is 5 years a fair exchange for the lasting effects of abuse? The answer is no. Those who are convicted of abuse should not be eligible for probation for 5 years the first time and 10 years the second time. Offenders should be made to complete a rehabilitation program and should be cataloged on a website just like sexual offenders in many states. One of the first lines of defense the United States has against child abuse is education. Child Abuse and Prevention and Treatment Act, or CAPTA, already has many programs in place for adults. But what about the children? Aren't children the most likely people to see abuse or the effects of abuse? If we could start a program to help children understand when they or others are abused and report it to a trusted adult, it might empower the children to report sooner and save many people from being harmed. Taking the time to educate our children might save a life. To conclude, as citizens, we need to stand up for this future and put a stop to child abuse that exists in our nation. One child abused or neglected is one child too many. We have the resources to prevent and or treat abuse, but isn't it time that we shed our blindfolds and do something? If you're an adult and you live in a state that does not mandate all adult reporters, you can and should report if you suspect abuse. Remember, failing to report means that a child might continue being abused. Everyone should write to Congress and urge them to strengthen the punishments of abusers as well as start educational programs for children. Stand up and say no. No more abuse. Thank you.
A censor is defined by the Merriam-Webster dictionary as an official, as in time of war, who reads communication and deletes material considered sensitive or harmful, while censorship is defined as the actions or practices of censors, especially censoral control exercised repressively. Currently, 19 countries, including the United States of America, has imposed censorship on the third most visited website on the planet, YouTube. While living in the United States, it may not seem like you are being censored, but as recently as 2011, President Barack Obama asked Yemeni President Abdullah Saleh to stop the release of journalist Abdullah Shea, who reported on the U.S. involvement in a series of bombings in 2009. Censorship is only thought of as happening in third world developing countries, but in reality, some first world nations also take part in the practicing of censoring what their population is exposed to. Censorship has been a way of controlling what the population in certain areas is exposed to, has been used throughout history. Some may think of censorship as a recent phenomenon, but most notably, in 399 BC, Socrates, a Greek philosopher, was sentenced to death for his corruption of youth and his acknowledgement of unorthodox divinities. In short, he was killed because his views differed from those of the ruling party of Athens. Since we know that his death was caused as a form of censorship, we can reasonably assume that censorship was not a new idea at this point in time, but rather a continuation of what had been occurring already. If that example is not enough by itself, the use of censorship by the Catholic Church exemplifies how censorship was used for hundreds of years. Through the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church controlled all universities and publications, mostly because the Catholic clergy were some of the most educated people in the world at that time. In 1543, the Catholic Church enacted a law that stated no book could be sold or printed without the permission of the Church. This act was one of the first modern acts of censorship that affected entire nations. Censorship is nothing new, but as time has gone on, it has become harder and harder for governments to enact censorship because information is much easier to come across. In recent history, oppressive governments have tried to censor what information their population is exposed to, but in the end, it never works. In 2006, according to the Committee to Protect Journalists, the most censored countries were North Korea, Burma, Turkmenistan, Equatorial Guinea, Libya, Eritrea, Cuba, Uzbekistan, Syria, and Belarus. Before reading further into this, North Korea, Libya, Cuba, and Syria are the only nations I have ever heard of in the news before. Currently, two of those countries, Libya and Syria, their populations have already overthrown their governments in the Arab Spring, and both North Korea and Cuba seem to be on the edge of revolutions of their own. After reading further into it, Burma, Turkmenistan, Eritrea, Uzbekistan, they are all highly undeveloped nations that have military-style dictatorships in power currently. So far this year, 2013, and keep in mind it is only May, almost June, already 15 journalists have been killed while trying to get a story. In 2012 alone, 232 journalists were imprisoned in countries around the world, with Turkey having the most in prison at 49. I believe that censorship is a direct violation of basic human rights, and for that reason should not be imposed upon any group or individual. If a country or leader begins to participate in the act of censoring its people and media, it only proves that they have something to hide. Although some censorship is all right, the keeping of information is different from, for example, bleeping out a curse word on television or radio. If a country, such as North Korea, chooses to keep their population from what is happening from outside the country, other nations should intervene to keep this tragedy from occurring. As shown through the collapse of various nations, the use of censorship to control the population of nations is not effective. Although it may prevent them from seeing what is really going on, eventually the people catch on, and it usually leads to mass protests, and in extreme cases, even revolution. Censorship is the easier wrong rather than the harder right, which is to allow the country to be exposed to information, but to interpret it for themselves. If censorship continues to evolve, it could eventually turn into the world as George Orwell's novel, 1984. In this novel, newspeak is the act of removing all meaning from words in order to eliminate the possibility of thought and conversation. If we continue to allow censorship to fester in countries all over the world, it could evolve into something much more sinister. Is this a world that you want your children to live in? Thank you.
Internet piracy means many things to different people. To some, it could be viewed as a way to cheat artists out of the money that they deserve. To others, it could be the ability to get almost any kind of media, information, or more, which they, as potential supporters, could have been deprived of otherwise. Internet piracy sites receive more than 146 million visits per day, and more than 22% of all global bandwidth is used on internet piracy. Those supporting piracy claim that the spread of free public sharing of information brings awareness to the creator. Those opposing say that illegal downloads take away from the profit that the product would have given to the artist or company. Does internet piracy really have an effect on creators, though? Piracy has been said to take away profit from the artist copied. The United States Congress contends that online piracy costs the United States economy between $200 and $250 billion per year and results in a loss of 750,000 jobs a year. However, Julian Sanchez, a researcher from the Cato Institute, investigated these claims and found that they could not be substantiated or traced to an underlying data source or mythology. Sanchez even argued that it'd be virtually impossible to measure online piracy's effects on the economy because of its ever-changing nature of the economic crisis. Research even suggests that music and entertainment business, the businesses most affected by piracy, have even done better in recent economic crises than other industries. There are also valid reasons for piracy. Many do not have a way to legally purchase the product. Take, for example, the hit HBO show Game of Thrones. The show broke records of international piracy and has even been downloaded illegally more than it has actually been watched on television due to HBO requiring a subscription to a cable service. The show still makes a profit through piracy, however. This is due to fans of the show purchasing merchandise and DVDs of the show when it is released. Research has even indicated that those who legally download media are more likely to purchase merchandise than those who paid the product. Many attempts to stop piracy have also escalated beyond belief. Jamie Thomas, a Native American mother of 4 from Minnesota, was charged for violating copyright after downloading 24 songs. She lost her court case and was ordered to pay more than $200,000 for infringement. A new trial was called, and once more she lost, and was ordered to pay $1.9 million in damages to the record label, which was reduced to a mere $54,000 by the judge. Yet another case was called in 2011, and the record label was awarded $1.5 million by the jury. It was reduced again by the judge to the price of $2,250 per song. The record label is still appealing to sue. Another attempt to stop piracy was to add DRM, or digital rights management, to products. DRM is supposed to help to keep from pirate sharing and more by adding software that can keep the product from being transferred to another computer. However, DRM can include such fun things as spying on your computers, constant internet connections, restrictions, installing backdoors, and imposed upgrades. Yet another attempt to stop piracy was the shutdown of the Pirate Bay, undoubtedly the largest pirate bay in the world. In response, the Pirate Bay wrapped up their whole site into a file for anyone to copy and store on their own server. People set up hundreds of versions of the site, and the sharing continues on. Piracy means many things to different people. Piracy is not merely the stealing of an object. It is sharing between the owner of an object and someone else. If we were to brand piracy as petty theft, wouldn't watching a film with a friend be stealing? Or for that matter, what of burning a CD? Another example would be instant streaming sites. There are millions of sites that allow users to watch almost any show for free and safe from being targeted. All are distributing the same as piracy. The rules around these are hazy at most. What is the difference between streaming the file and downloading it? If the government was so intent on keeping copyrights from being infringed upon, you'd think they would have shut these down. Many creators media have realized this and allowed this to continue due to the simple fact that they continue making money. It's time everyone realized the good of the spread of media. Thank you.
A lot of people say that art is a waste of time. That art is going to get you nowhere. People say that any job you take in art is wrong because you're not going to make money. Other people say that art is important because it helps the kids to keep calm and keep them away from stress. They also say that art is a good way to express your ideas and dreams of anything you want to say. Art can help people to be creative and find a way to resolve problems or create something that inspires others to do something. The best option of these two is to teach art in the schools, because with it, more people will have creativity in everything they do. Most people say that math and science should be taught more because they are needed for everything. Doctors use it, businessmen use it, lawyers use it, and every job in the world uses it. Some people say that art has nothing to do with business world. They say that we can find other things more important to do. and are better than teaching how to draw and paint. Some people complain that art takes a lot of money and time and does not benefit the school. They said that if a school wastes a lot of money in art projects, the school will be a waste of time. In my other school that I went, they take art and music out of the program. They only teach now first grade and third grade. They make this change because they said that nobody's going to use art when the student grow up, go to college, or have a job. Most of the people like the idea, others don't. The art music class was the only class that let you make the things that you want to do. Well, now you can't. This was a big deal for some people, but not for everybody. Because we are a small group, the art music program never come back to the other grades. Art is not just painting and drawing stuff with different colors. Art is more than that. Can you imagine a world without art? Nothing on the TV, nothing you want to wear is original. Art is everything in this world. The car that you use to go home was made by somebody that started with an idea. The books that you read were made by somebody that have a dream and want to make it real. This even helps people to feel free in anything like clothes. Or do you want to wear the same white shirt with white pants? And don't forget those white shoes with the white shoelaces that you love to wear every day. We need art in everything we do in life. One person told me one day, that is a waste of time. You are going to live on the street if you do that. Art is going to take you nowhere. I lived with these words in my head for a while. I like to draw, but after that, I stopped drawing the things that I like. I was feeling that he was right, that art is really a waste of time. One day I was walking in a store by the magazine section. I was looking for something interesting to read. And then I found a magazine teaching how to draw cartoons. I was interested in that magazine that I take it home with me. I started learning again and started feeling better by myself because I found something that nobody can tell me what to do or how to do it. Art gives you a lot of skills for you to learn and use it in life. One of the things that art helps is creativity. In history, we can see nobles, kings, and people with power that learned art because it was a big thing that they need to know. With creativity, people are allowed to make inventions. With the power to change the world or start a new need somebody to create something better. We can see that people like Steve Jobs, he made an Apple computer and he had this just small idea in his head. Most people are going to say, but that is technology. Technology is still art. That doesn't matter because with that idea, other people can change the way the world goes. NBC News report on a school where art was not offered. An Orchard Garden school in Massachusetts. They have a really tough problem. The school have a really violent environment and low educational level for students. They have had 5 principals in the last 7 years, and the half of the teachers didn't return. In 2010, the principal number 6, Andrew Booth, have a brilliant idea. He says, we're going to write off the security guards. He took all the money that was used in security and used it in different programs, art. By doing this, he used art like a tool of academic success. This school was notorious for its lack of discipline, where backpacks are not allowed for fear that the students will use them to hide weapons. The principal, Andrew Booth, also says, a lot of my college really questioned my decisions. A lot of people actually would say to me, do you realize that orchid gardening is a career killer? You know, you don't want to go to orchid gardens. But because of that great idea, 3 years later, the school was almost unrecognizable. They had brightly colored paintings, essays of achievement, and a motivational poster in line in the halls. The dance studio has been reopened, so has the band room and the art studio. In the end, Orchard Garden has one of the fastest student improvement rates in statewide. and the students, one described out of control, have found their focus. The school is far from perfect. Test scores are better, but still lower than the average in the state. Andrew Booth says they're far from done, but indefinitely on the right path. Some students say, I can really have a future in this. Art is needed in all areas, from little toys to big corporation of technology. Art can change person from bad to good with a little of attention. Art is the reason that everybody lives and creates. Without art, we're only bodies walking up and down, doing the same thing every day. Art can be the beginning of something big, and because of that, art should be taught in the schools. Art, like the student of Orchid Garden, I really think that art can be a way to success. Thank you.
Gangs have been around in America since the 1850s, when immigrants who harassed or lacked employment banded together to face their enemies. Now, current gangs are recruiting younger and younger, and not just people from the same race or ethnicity as in the 1850s. They no longer fight to stop harassment from other races, but now band together to gain money, power, and so-called respect on the street. Gangs grow stronger each day, affecting youth and innocent citizens alike, and America sits back and watches it, never taking a drastic measure to ensure it doesn't happen again. Is it fair that our youth must suffer at the hands of these hooligans because they do not have the involved parents or do not have the foundational structures needed to be successful? America must realize that America's youth and future is being affected on a daily basis. And by the time we realize that they need our help, they are either dead or in jail. People disagree in different ways on gang prevention, but what is even more scary is that people debate whether gangs can be prevented at all. Our youth are in serious danger, and many of us have yet to realize it. The average age of a current gang member is 17 to 18, and new recruiters are jumping in kids as young as 7 years old. Many of these gang members don't know anything else but the gang life and feel it is too late to turn back. Many of the signs of future gang members usually start at schools with the troublemakers and class clowns and extends as close as home. Many kids who are raised by a single mother feel they are missing a father figure. There's an emptiness that cannot be filled. Also, many kids and teenagers who have no structure or discipline can easily be future gang members as well. A gang is described by many members as a family that's always there for them. But what many kids and teenagers fail to realize is that they're just part of a gang that is way bigger than them, and they're but just a little piece of a puzzle that can be spared at any moment. Gangs have become such a problem that even some gangs, such as the MS-13, have grown so powerful that they have become declared an international criminal organization. The time has come for America to stop the influence of gangs in their tracks, from our schools to our neighborhoods. Yes, people may argue that gang prevention facilities and youth centers cost millions of dollars, and during these rough economic times, people just don't have that kind of money to spend. Now, this is very true. We are in an economic crisis, but who do you think it will be that pulls us out of it and puts us back on the top where America belongs? Our kids, the future of America. And what changes can a very young and intelligent man make when he has never provided the opportunity to change himself or keep himself out of trouble? Now, there's also the argument that we can build all this, but we do not have 100% assurance that kids will even stay, let alone work. This is also very true, but there is never 100% assurance in anything unless you try. How can you plan to fail when you haven't even given yourself the opportunity to succeed? To give a good example of a former gang member, Bone and Lil Monster were rival gang members who changed their life and both agreed that the only thing neighborhoods need is empowerment. People like this are all over America, saying the same thing, but no one is willing to hear them because they are too quick to judge a book by its cover and feel they're just a waste of money. When truly, some of these kids want to get out of gangs, and if you present them all the propaganda the gangs have been showing these kids, many would not return to their former gangs. They would realize the lies they have been told and false claim these gangs make. Although there may be those few that claim that they will die for their gangs, no matter what the truth is, they are the ones who need the most attention because sometimes just a little attention is all someone needs. The U.S. must take action before it is too late and it spins out of control. Gang prevention facilities must be established in all urban areas, especially ones with high crime and gang rates. Youth center and gang rehabilitation centers should be primary as well. Future and current gang members need to know that if they want to leave the life they are living, that it is possible. They need to have the structure needed to never be influenced by gangs and to realize how bad the life actually is. Youth centers are a great means of keeping kids and students alike out of trouble. Youth and gang prevention centers can help kids with a single parent or dysfunctional family get the discipline and family they truly need, not the false family a gang supposedly provides. In a program called GREAT, which is a school-sponsored gang prevention program, they produce results as follows: 5% difference in favorable attitudes toward the police, 5% differences in engaging in risk-seeking behaviors, 4% difference in association with peers involved in pro-social activities. If a small program like GREAT can have such an impact on a school, imagine having gang prevention facilities and youth centers and the impact they would have on our kids' lives. Not only would those percentages increase, but we would see a dramatic improvement in our children's studies at schools. These facilities would not only prevent gangs, but they would get rid of the distraction of gangs and create a safe learning environment for our children. It is time for America to focus on education and youth, and no longer on the materialistic things. For the youth of America is the future of America. Thank you.
Most of the time, when people see someone who is poor, they immediately think of adults that they see sitting down, leaning against a building with a sign saying, "Lost my job, please help." People do not realize that it is not only adults, but children as well. Children are being raised in houses where the parents do not have enough money to put food on the table, and because of this, children are victims of child poverty. Every day, 21,000 children die, or that is the equivalent of 14 children every second. This is not because of earthquakes or car accidents. This is because the children live in families that do not have enough money to support their own children, so the children just suffer in silence. Not even recognized by the public, the children sit around in their homes starving, hoping for a miracle to prevent itself, and that for once in their lifetime they might actually have a meal to eat. There is something that can be done about this. The government or people that live near areas with high levels of poverty should get involved. There are groups now, such as the Children's Defense Fund, that are raising money to help end child poverty. According to the Children's Defense Fund organization, there are right now 16.1 million children living in America that are in poverty. There are other organizations such as food banks and the Buddy Packs, which pack food or take food donations that are distributed to the families that are suffering because of poverty. With these organizations' help, there are less children dying because of poverty, but the number of children that are dying is still way too high of a number. There needs to be more awareness raised for the struggle going on in America. These children that are dying because their parents cannot support them or feed them deserve a better life. These starving children should be temporarily taken from their homes and placed into a foster home or another family that has the money to feed them and give them adequate living conditions. Once the parents of these children find a job or have the money to support their child, then at the discretion of child services, the children should be allowed to move back in with their family. Some main causes of child poverty are children born to poor adults that are just raised into families with hardly any money. The adults that raise the children are just too lazy to go out and find a job. These parents need to do more and start caring for their children so the children that have done nothing to deserve starving to death can live. There are so many articles published about children that live in poverty, but not too many people take notice. Other things are put before the fact that children are dying in large numbers, such as professional baseball games. People would have to flip through a lot of pages in newspapers to find an article about child poverty. Companies that publish and print newspapers need to move these articles to the front. Put a headline on the front page of the New York Times that says, 21,000 children die every day due to poverty. And this farther down on the page, what people can do to help, and then see how much attention this topic gets. Not only is poverty causing these children to be underfed, but also because the family has no money The parents cannot afford for their sick children to see a doctor. The parents just wait and hope that the child gets better when the conditions that the children are living in could affect their health. The children just sit and suffer with their sickness, and sometimes when there's a serious sickness, such as pneumonia, they just get sicker and sicker without medicine to make them better until they finally just get better or die. As people in the United States, we should not put all the blame on the families and point fingers at them because some of the responsibility lies on us. People that have jobs and have the money to put food on the table for their kids should step up and support the cause to end child poverty. The only way that child poverty will end is through people donating money to support these families that do not have the money to support their own. Another major cause for child poverty is single parents that are trying to raise several kids without any aid. These parents are often stuck working more than one job and hardly ever spend time at home and do not have the money to afford a babysitter. So the children are left at home alone all day, often leaving the responsibility on the oldest child, which is sometimes not even 10 years old. Most of the children that live in child poverty turn to gangs and other methods of making money through illegal means because they do not know what else to do. There are statistics that prove that most children that live in child poverty end up in jail before they graduate high school because when they were a child, the parent never taught them responsibility because the parent could not be there and often left the child on their own. In addition to those circumstances, the children often live in neighborhoods where everyone is struggling, and crime is a common thing for these children to witness at an early age and do not know anything besides crime. Between 2000 and 2010, 92 million children have died. The website globalissues.org says, the continuation of this suffering and loss of life contravenes the natural human instinct to help in times of disaster. There is proof that human beings are just ignoring the poor and do not care about them. The average human being would rather just go to work and come home to support their family while pretending that there is no one in the world that needs help. People overlook the poor just because helping them would be an inconvenience. There needs to be more awareness to the public, and people should look up and search for images of child poverty and some of the statistics that are released about them. Then people might choose to stop overlooking the poor and actually spend some time helping them. People do not think what they would do if it was their child or their friend's child in that position. People need to start going out of their way to help people that are less fortunate than they are. America needs to stop putting so much attention into things that do not make such a difference, such as sports and celebrities. Americans need to stop looking around at all the other things and focus on what truly matters. Maybe then we can stop child poverty. Thank you.
The ancient Roman orator and statesman Seneca once said that as man speaks, so is he. As these young cadets were speaking this evening, we saw in them, in my mind, I think in yours, a keen intellect, well-researched information with a sincere heart in their speaking. So let's give them another round of applause, please. We will now take a 10-minute break where the judges will deliberate and we will listen to the jazz band once again. We'll see you in 10 minutes. Thank you. Let's find our seats, please. The time has come. Let's find our seats. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time, under the direction of Lieutenant Josh Yancey, Band Director, the Missouri Military Academy Jazz Band. I also want to mention the fact that the work that these boys have done could not have been accomplished if it wasn't for the English department that did the work, and also the teachers who helped judge, who were also the English department, our librarian, and the ESL instructor. So I want to also recognize those teachers, give them an applause, the English department and the librarian, please. And now we will begin the awarding.
We chose the recipient of the Churchill Award to go to the young man who spoke out for a just cause, who spoke with passion for something he believed in, and because Churchill is known for his courage, a young man who spoke out with courage for something he believed in. And so this year, the Churchill Award goes to Tajai Blue.
It's my pleasure to present the Wallace Fry Cup. We talked about this a great deal, and the judges realized that this is an elite competition. And we looked for content, delivery, and solutions for the problem presented in the topic. And based on that, we have selected Mr. John Johnston.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for attending this. As I said, this begins our commencement exercises for the weekend. Tomorrow, we will have a military review at 09:30. Please be there for that. There are schedules that you can get from faculty members. Once again, thank you very much. Drive safely, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. Thank you.